Hi, I'm Madison, and my Hill Country Value project is titled Henry Hill and the Texas Hill Country. For my project, I chose to make an interactive coloring book that could potentially be placed in visitor centers or nature centers throughout the area. By interactive, I mean it has words and pictures, and it was originally aimed for young children, but I found it difficult to write at a child's level, so it's probably a little bit more advanced than I had planned for. The book explores different habitats that are present in the hill country, such as caverns, streams, and hills, in order to help educate future generations about the diversity of the hill country and help to spread awareness about and promote conservation of the region. So I started by looking into children's books and coloring books in order to figure out about how long my book should be. And then I did some research on the Texas Hill Country to figure out which places and species would be most representative. Then I outlined a couple of ways to travel through the hill country. One was by cities, one was by meeting different animals, and another was by exploring different habitats. I eventually settled on a mix between animals and habitats, and then I wrote the actual words to the book. To finish it off, I drew the pictures. I sketched them by looking at individual images online and then combining them into scenes for each page. So I was going to read through the entire book, but when I recorded it the first time, it was way too long. So I'm just going to describe the general path of the book while I show you the images that I drew. If you want to read the words later, I can always send it to you. Henry Hill and the Texas Hill Country, an interactive coloring book. And then this is the back cover where I just mentioned that I included some things at the back of the book, which we'll go over later. The book starts by introducing a Texas Hill Country expert, Henry Hill, and he says we're going to go on an adventure through the Texas Hill Country. He starts that adventure by detailing some history about the Native Americans, Spanish, and German citizens who lived there centuries ago and paved the way for the unique mix of individuals that live there today. Then Henry visits Georgetown, where we talk about poppies, the Georgetown salamander, karst landscapes, and the Bone Cave harvestmen. Then Henry talks about bats and about how Texas used to be underwater. Next, we visit Enchanted Rock, talk about batholiths, and meet some fairy shrimp. Henry then mentions the Edwards Aquifer and some of the springs that feed from it and species that live there, including the Barton Springs salamander, the Comel Dry Springs diopid beetle, and Texas wild rice. Next, Henry visits the hills, where he talks about oaks and cedars, wildfires, and the golden-cheeked warbler. He mentions the Wild Basin Wilderness Preserve and the Hill Country Natural State Area. We talk about wildflowers and the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, and then we mention some of the native and non-native species that we haven't yet met in the book. Henry then talks about the growing population of the Texas Hill Country and its effects on species. He gives some ways that kids can help, like recycling, planting native plants, and turning off the lights. Next, he encourages reaching out to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and getting parents involved. He ends with a thank you and a reminder to be friendly to all. And then these are the included resources that I mentioned at the beginning. I did definitions of all the bolded words, pictures, and a list of all the species, a list of all the places and their associated websites, and then a works cited. And then just to test the colorability of the book, I had my mom and my brother each color a page, and I scanned them in to show you all as examples. So this was my brother's, and this was my mom's. Overall, I really enjoyed completing this project, and I now know more about the Texas Hill Country than I ever thought I would, which is good because the first steps to conserving and protecting an area are awareness and understanding.